Frank Lampard, obviously big news that came out. Sacked as Chelsea manager 18 months in. I think it's a bit premature, me personally, but what's your thoughts on it? Right decision?
I feel sometimes it's a little bit difficult because to comment on when you're not a Chelsea fan, or in this instance a Chelsea fan, because sometimes you got to look beyond. If it's your club, it might mean a lot more. Just getting results in the short term. But for me, I think it's too early, and I think prime example of that's Solskjaer in it. I think.
Yeah.
Almost everyone wanted him out, didn't they? And I think with those sort of managers that lack a little bit of experience, they just need a bit more time just to make some tweaks and that. And Lampard started really well, so there's obviously potential there.
Finished fourth last season, which when you consider the transfer ban and everything, brought some young players through. I thought that was a big achievement getting Chelsea in the Champions League last season. And if anything, it's probably looking back now. I don't know if we've mentioned it before, and yeah, you might have done actually. He's probably looking back now thinking he wishes he didn't spend all this money and had stuck with the players who he got performances out of last season.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. It's personally, whether it was Lampard that wanted Havertz and Werner, nobody knows. But really, it needs to be people that are responsible for those signings. Really, I know Chelsea haven't been great in the sort of in recent form, but I don't know. I just think it's a bit early. I think if you had another season or so, I think you got to look at Werner, man. If he's performing in games, Chelsea win a lot more games than he hasn't been. And so they're obviously looking at Frank, but it's obviously Chelsea's track record with managers, and there's they've had more sackings than not dinners, haven't they? So
they have, yeah, they do. They like a sacking, don't they? Just seeing here as well, under Abramovich, second worst win percentage, Lampard. So I suppose that's one big in favour of Abramovich's decision to get rid of him. Something strange about it though, Abramovich actually said something about this one where he never has before, has he? He never goes to the media. You don't hear anything of him. He just puts the money in, doesn't he, really, and goes to the games, but very rarely. So that shows that it probably a tougher decision than usual for him. I don't think he's took it lightly, has he, this one?
No, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you'd have looked at Frank's record at Chelsea and it weren't Frank Lampard in charge, he'd have probably been gone a couple of months ago. Because it's Frank Lampard, it feels like a bad decision, but if it was anyone else, I think it'd look all right for Chelsea fans. But because it's Frank, it's there's that emotional side with it as well. And I think the fairy tale was that Frank Lampard was just going to be managing now for a few years and do a good job. But football's not that easy. And like I say, I think it is a little bit early. I think they're in the Champions League last 16. I think. God knows when that gets finished by. But I think I don't think it was a good time to sack him. I would have seen him out to end the season, maybe let him finish the Champions League, and then probably see where they are at the end of the season. I think it's going to be I think it'll be difficult to finish top four anyway.
Yeah, and they're still only 5 points off. I know that's it's not ideal. They're in 9th at the minute, but 5 points off Liverpool in 4th, which considered Liverpool were miles above everyone last season. It's not horrendous, is it? But that's what football's like, especially these top clubs now, aren't they? They'll, as you said, Chelsea, more sackings than not dinners, like you said, isn't it?
I really do think it. I never agree with sort of. It's different for teams that are fighting for survival because sometimes you do need to sack a manager to ensure you stay up. With these top teams, I think, is it the end of the world if you just take a risk on a manager like Frank? We saw how quickly it can change. Frank Guardiola at City, they were looking really poor early on. They were right down there, and then before you know it, they're likely going to go top of the league. So I think sometimes with the bigger teams, it is worth just taking a risk and seeing how the season pans out. And if it's not worked out well, then go at the end of the season. But these sort of midway through, whether it'll work out, I don't know. If Tuchel, which it looks like it's going to be Tuchel, if he don't pick up results straight away, it's going to look even sillier, man, because he'll be gone before you know it as well.
Yeah, and even like we say, Chelsea obviously are renowned for sacking the managers. This is a Premier League thing in general, really. I was looking earlier, 1920 season, average 789 days managers lasted. That was the last known statistic, which is, if my adding up for right, around 2 years or just over 2. So it's not, this seems to be a thing in general, doesn't it? Dyche is the longest now, as we know. He's been at Burnley about 8 years now. Next is Klopp on 5 years, which is a big gap in it, and that shows managers are getting sacked, I think, too soon, rather than giving. Seems to be the first bad spell they have, they're out the door. Whereas not many are giving them a chance to turn it around, are they? And it must be frustrating.
They say it all the time, though. It's a results-driven business, and if you don't get results, you're not going to be in a job. But a lot of the time, man, you got to look past that for the club. I genuinely think that if you can just... Southampton's such a good example, man. Bit like Burnley when we had a really bad time when we got relegated. Stuck with the manager, and it's been the best decision. We could have easily sacked Dyche that season, and they didn't. And we went on and had a brilliant... Well, we've had a brilliant few years, but Southampton's the same with Hasenhüttl. And I think any other club would have probably sacked. After that 9-0, they were playing pretty poor anyway. And they stuck with him, and now they're, reaping the rewards of it. And I think you're spot on there. I think it definitely is too soon, on average in the Premier League before they sack someone.
Yeah, and I bet it's not much different Football League as well. I haven't got that. I haven't looked at that, but I bet it's not much different because they just, as you said, they just don't get any time now to have a chance to turn it around. Lampard, and this is his first bad spell. Imagine it's like if Liverpool go and sack Klopp now, isn't it? Different way. Obviously, Lampard's not. I know he ain't had the success. I'm not saying the complete, but you know what I mean. It's his first bad spell, Klopp, who we're going to come on to, and it'd be like them say, "Oh, no chance to turn it around, just sack you."
Well, they're the same, aren't they? Klopp's not going to be sacked by Liverpool. The Premier League and football in general is so topsy-turvy, man. You're going to go through good spells. You're going to go through bad spells. You're going to go through average spells. And it doesn't make you a bad manager because you've had a few bad games.
Yeah. Every team's in that. Nobody shows that. Good form don't last for any team forever.
No, it doesn't.
Nobody wins every single game every week.
No, you just can't. And, you're bound to have a few games where you're going to get a couple of losses or a few games without a win. And all of a sudden it's like, we're this manager's not very good. It's like, there's nothing wrong with a manager. You're just in some bad form, and it just, a lot of the time there is a bad manager, and from the off they won't get results. But I think, yeah, like you say, just need time to just get yourself back out of that rut, and it'll be good again. If football's up and down sometimes, you can't have it good all the time.
I'm struggling to see where Lampard will go next. I was discussing it with my granddad actually on the phone earlier, and I was thinking, just can't see him getting another top job. Tottenham's never going to appoint him, are they?
He probably goes abroad somewhere, doesn't he?
Abroad could be an option, yeah, or maybe even he might be willing to. Well, I think he would be willing to go to a club like Burnley, that sort of team who's stable Premier League club. That I just can't see him getting that top job, but he could go abroad. I don't know if he'd do that though. I feel like Lampard would want to stay and get another job in England, whether that be in the Premier League. He might even drop back down to the Championship.
It's a tough one to say that, I think he would probably be a good manager at, this is the thing, it's so tricky to say because you look at the experience. He's had the Derby job and Chelsea, and it's like two complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't know how he'd get on at a club sort of like bottom third of the Premier League, whether he'd be cut out for that, I don't know. It's
so that's why I think he needs to get a job there.
There's a lot of grinding.
There's still people saying
results in there at the bottom.
Yeah, and there's still people saying that he obviously got that Chelsea job, didn't really deserve it. That's what people say, because obviously he had only managed Derby. He got him to the playoffs, didn't he? Playoff final, but essentially he didn't do anything. He didn't go up, didn't win anything. And then he walked into this Chelsea job. So there are people saying, aren't there? He's been given a top job before he really deserved it or were ready for it. So I think he needs to have maybe a bottom half Premier League job, see if he can do that side of it as well.
Yeah.
I think that'd be good for his reputation, mate.
Yeah, this is the thing. It makes you wonder how much these managers for example, at Chelsea, he's got very little managerial experience, but he's got that side of Mr. Chelsea in it. Do you know what I mean? So that probably brought a lot to it. So like you say, I would get on at another club in the Championship or bottom half of the Premier League, and whether he'd do a job. But I think that's what he definitely needs to do if he wants to stake his claim as a manager, as a good manager, because he could end up just losing any chance of a decent career now after leaving Chelsea if he doesn't sort of go somewhere and get some results in that.
Yeah, his next decision is a really big one. He's got to get that right as Lampard. And the new man coming in, as you said, it's looking like Thomas Tuchel in it. I don't know if it's very more or less been announced without being announced, hasn't it? It's one of them. Different altogether. Aren't they going opposite ends of the spectrum really to Lampard in terms of experience? He's got plenty of it. It's looking here, Augsburg, Mainz, Dortmund, PSG as well, managed big clubs.
Yeah.
I can see why they've gone different, can you? I can see why they've had to, after Lampard, he's probably thinking Abramovich, it's got to be a
they've had to,
more of a,
really.
Yeah, head over heart this time, hasn't it? And look at his win percentages, all better than Lampard, apart from when he was at Mainz, which is a different, you're not going to have a fantastic.
I've not been overly impressed with this Tuchel. I feel like he's got a reputation that's a little bit unjust. I feel like whenever there's a position available in the Premier League, it's always his name in there, which sacked by PSG, and he's got a name for being a bit of a tactician, but we'll have to see how he gets on it. The thing I liked about Lampard is that he had a lot of time for bringing youth through at Chelsea as well. Whether or not Tuchel have the time for that, he might just want to go straight in. That's another point actually. Thinking about it, that Lampard was, he might have maybe affected results a little bit, but he's, have big emphasis on sort of youth in the Chelsea team, which Tuchel might not do. Might want some a bit more experience, a bit more senior signings in there, and younger players might lose out. So
there's already talk of Tomori leaving, isn't there?
So
apparently, so it's, and like you said, tactically, saw someone describe him as a control freak. So I think he's really, he'll be very involved with them players, if you know what I mean. He's not going to be.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because I don't think the players will. Well, I think it was Danny Murphy came out and said, well, there's rumours about Danny Murphy saying that Rudiger and Kovacic had gone to the board to get Lampard out. But I don't think the players. It's not like where the players were getting, other teams where really bad results, lose the dressing room, not getting along, and then when a new manager comes in, you've got that new feel, you're buzzing, you want to show them what you can do. Chelsea team majority probably didn't want Frank Lampard out. Probably had a really good relationship with him. So getting a new manager in, is there going to be that? Oh yeah, buzzy feeling about the place, because it's not like they've got rid of some toxic manager that's not been doing a good job to, this amazing manager, we're going to do really well. It'd be interesting to see how they actually react when
you can usually tell, can't you, if a manager's been sacked, the way the players react, and you've seen a lot of them put on social media about Lampard, and you can usually get an idea, can't you? I know we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but you get a good idea from that. There's been no reports about any unrest with the players and him. Something here that Tuchel said a few years back, so this is obviously before he's going to get the Chelsea job. Something you need to learn and understand, not a thing you do because there's nothing else left, or because it seems like the logical next step after 400 professional matches. I think he's saying after you finish your playing career, it's not practically logical to go straight into management. It's with that thing in it that just because you're a good player don't make you a good manager. I think that's the sort of line.
Yeah.
And so
I agree with that.
He's sort of anti what Chelsea did last time, isn't he? In terms of he believes like Lampard got the job. Most people would say Lampard hadn't done enough to get a top job. He only managed Derby for a season. So it's a very big change, isn't it? That big change of thinking.
Yeah, it is a risk though. Like you say, it's now just starting to pay off for Man United. Like, I think Ollie's probably in football history the worst CV there is to get a job like Man United. It's only because he played there. He's there. But sometimes this is what makes me question whether that connection with the football club is stronger than your experience in coaching. The players are playing really well for Ollie, and it's paying off. And he's not got, like we say, not got a good CV. Frank arguably got a better CV than Solskjaer. So yeah, we'll have to see how these teams get on now. But like I say, it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? So
it is, yeah, it is definitely. But yeah, just have to wait and see if Chelsea are right. Personally, I think though overall we're both agreeing a bit early in it, the sacking for us.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a bit early, but I'm not surprised. It's one of them. I'm not like he's been. I don't think he should have got sacked. But I'm not surprised he's been sacked because we all know what Chelsea are like.
No.